The queen sat on her throne, the metal cool beneath her fingertips, her eyes narrowing over the grand hall where the latest delegation awaited their turn. Another one. She sighed, a sound so soft it barely disturbed the polished floors. "Next," she commanded, her voice steady but carrying that unmistakable edge of, "I'm about to crush your hopes, so brace yourself." The ambassador shuffled forward, a nervous blur of blaster-etched armor and diplomatic insignia. "Your Majesty," he began, voice trembling as if his vocal cords anticipated rejection like it was a galactic epidemic. "Our worlds could unite under your leadership. Together, we could—" She cut him off with a smile so sharp it could have been forged in a star's core. "Unfortunately, I'm allergic to alliances that come with too many strings." A faint chuckle rippled from the council members, the kind of laughter that's equal parts relief and shared misery. The ambassador's face went a shade paler, if that was even possible under all the bioenhancements. He nodded, retreating with the grace of someone who'd just tripped over the throne steps in full ceremonial gear. The queen's long ears twitched, almost imperceptibly, but enough to draw a sidelong glance from one of the guards, who quickly pretended to inspect his plasma rifle. Those ears were the subject of endless gossip, of course. Alien Royal, the tabloids called her, the mysterious beauty with the lethal glare and extra hearing. She often joked in her mind that if anyone tried to serenade her, those ears would pick up every off-key note. And trust her, she would not hesitate to retaliate with a laser blast. Power in the galaxy was often measured in fleets and firepower, but the queen preferred the power of disinterest, wielded like a finely sharpened blade. Suitors came in droves, each more desperate than the last, but she had perfected the art of rejection. It was almost a sport. "Would you like a starship?" "No." "How about a moon?" Still no. "Would you like to meet my pet asteroid?" She reserved the right to laugh then, and it was a dry, mocking sound that made even the bravest squirm. The queen did not suffer fools or bad gifts. Meanwhile, in a small, cluttered corner of the galaxy, a human man named Elliot was busy causing a minor stir by failing spectacularly at a holographic etiquette simulation. "No, no, no, you don't bow like that. You look like a malfunctioning toaster," his trainer scolded, flicking her wrist to reset the program. Elliot sighed and tried again, this time accidentally knocking over a virtual vase, which shattered with a surprisingly realistic ping. "Great. First impression, klutz. Second impression, accidental vandal." He muttered, rubbing the back of his neck as the simulation glitched and reset once more. To everyone else, he was an unlikely candidate for royal attention. A man from Earth, with no noble lineage, no fleet, and no fancy tech beyond his trusty old datapad. But Elliot had something that others lacked: persistence, curiosity, and an almost absurd sense of humor that he wielded like a shield. He knew the queen's reputation and wasn't daunted. Instead, he was fascinated. He wanted to understand what made her tick, beyond the cold veneer and sharp ears. When Elliot's mission to reach the queen finally got greenlit by his own skeptical commanders, mostly because they wanted to get rid of him, the galaxy watched with a mix of amusement and disbelief. "You think he'll make it past the throne room without getting vaporized?" one general asked. "Well, if nothing else, he might make her laugh," another replied, smirking. Elliot arrived with no grand fanfare, no massive starship or armada, just a worn leather jacket, an open mind, and a knack for accidentally tripping over alien customs. At his first meeting, he greeted the queen with a clumsy bow that nearly turned into a faceplant. The queen raised an eyebrow, her long ears twitching with curiosity, or maybe amusement. "You're persistent," she said, "or just terribly unlucky." Elliot grinned, scratching the back of his head. "Maybe a bit of both, but hey, it's a start, right?" The queen allowed a small smile, the first crack in her formidable armor. "I suppose I could tolerate a few more disasters like this." The court erupted into whispers. Perhaps, just perhaps, something new was beginning. Days turned into weeks, and Elliot's awkward charm began to chip away at the queen's solitude. He asked questions no one else dared, laughed at jokes even he didn't understand, and somehow managed to listen more than he spoke. At a state dinner, When a dignitary launched into a pompous speech about interstellar trade, Elliot quietly passed the Queen a datapad with a meme of a dancing robot labeled, "When they drone on for hours, but you've got a galactic conquest tomorrow." The Queen's silent laughter was a revelation. "You have a strange sense of timing," she whispered. Elliot shrugged. "Well, if ruling a galaxy doesn't work out, I've got a future in comedy." The Queen glanced at her advisors, who tried and failed to hide their smiles. For the first time, the Iron Queen felt the warmth of companionship, wrapped in humor and the absurdity of it all. Yet the galaxy was not so easily fooled. Rumors began to swirl that the Queen was weakening, that her iron grip might slip. Spies watched Elliot with suspicion, diplomats reconsidered their positions, and fleets prepared for any sign of vulnerability. But the Queen remained steady, knowing that sometimes the greatest strength lay not in power or fear, but in trust. Trust that could be built on the laughter shared between a queen and the most unlikely of human suitors. And in that quiet, improbable connection, the galaxy's most powerful ruler found a flicker of something she had long denied herself: hope. The Queen didn't exactly invite Elliot into the inner sanctum on purpose. It was more like she noticed that he was still there, asking odd questions and making inappropriate jokes about the star charts. "You know," he said one day, gesturing at the swirling data display, "if these planets were arranged like my sock drawer, we'd have fewer wars and more lost socks." The Queen raised an eyebrow. "Lost socks?" she asked. "You have those problems too?" Elliot grinned. "Every day. Some mysteries are universal." She sighed but didn't dismiss him, which was practically an invitation in the Queen's book. Over the following weeks, Elliot became a fixture, like a particularly clumsy comet that just wouldn't burn out. Her advisors were less enthusiastic. "Your Majesty, this human's presence undermines protocol," one whispered, casting wary glances. Another muttered about cultural contamination. The Queen, however, waved them off. "If I can't handle a few jokes at my expense, how can I expect to handle a hostile fleet?" she retorted. Elliot's awkward mannerisms and penchant for accidentally knocking over important-looking devices were a constant source of quiet chaos. During a strategy briefing, Elliot tried to demonstrate a new tactic using holograms, but ended up projecting a dancing penguin instead. "That's a strategic feint," he explained earnestly. "The enemy won't expect the disco move." The Queen couldn't help but chuckle. "Only you would think of warfare as a dance-off," she said, shaking her head. Meanwhile, the human's persistence revealed layers of the Queen that few had ever glimpsed. He noticed the tiny mechanical bird that sang a melancholy tune perched by her window, the only thing she seemed to care for besides the galaxy itself. "She's not so different from us," Elliot confided to a fellow envoy. "Behind all that power and those sharp ears is someone who just wants a friend." And that was exactly what Elliot offered. Friendship disguised as awkward banter and curious questions. One evening, the Queen found herself laughing at a story Elliot told about Earth's ridiculous fashion trends, specifically a garment called the man bun. "A hairstyle so controversial it has sparked wars?" she asked. "No," Elliot replied, "but it causes enough eye rolls to be just as dangerous." The Queen smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't allowed herself to experience in years. The political landscape was shifting too. Rival factions saw Elliot as a weakness to exploit, a human who dared to approach the Queen with nothing but his sincerity. Agents attempted to discredit him, planting false rumors and manipulating court intrigue. Yet Elliot handled each challenge with an unflappable spirit. Once, when accused of spying, he responded, "If I were a spy, I'd at least be better at it. I can't even keep my communicator charged." The Queen admired his resilience, and perhaps, more than that, the way he reminded her that not everything had to be taken with deadly seriousness. After all, in the vastness of space, sometimes all you could do was laugh at the absurdity of it all. One particularly tense day, the Queen faced a rebellion brewing on a distant moon. Her generals urged swift, ruthless action. Elliot, however, proposed an unorthodox plan: dialogue over destruction. "Why not send them a message with a joke?" he suggested. "If they laugh, they listen. If not, well, then we have a backup plan." The Queen found herself intrigued. Against the advice of her war council, she allowed Elliot to send a transmission, an elaborate comedic routine performed by a holographic puppet resembling a notorious rebel leader. The rebels were baffled, then amused, and finally agreed to parley. It was an unexpected victory, proving that sometimes humor could be a weapon as sharp as any laser. Their growing connection stirred something in the Queen that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Trusting someone was a gamble she had never been willing to take, but Elliot's genuine presence made her question the solitary fortress she'd built around herself. One night, after a long day of state affairs, Elliot accidentally spilled a cup of synth coffee onto the Queen's datapad. "I'm sorry," he apologized sheepishly. "I swear I'm not usually this clumsy. Must be the gravity here." The Queen laughed aloud, startling a nearby guard. "You're hopeless," she said fondly, "and somehow that's exactly why I tolerate you." As their laughter echoed softly through the palace halls, the Queen realized that the galaxy's most powerful ruler was beginning to feel something that had eluded her for years: companionship. Word of their odd friendship spread, sparking gossip and disbelief. "The Queen bested by a human's bad jokes?" one senator sneered. "She's lost her mind," another muttered. But Elliot and the Queen paid little heed. They shared quiet moments, discussing everything from ancient cosmic phenomena to the best way to make a terrible joke land. Elliot once tried to explain the concept of dad jokes, and the Queen, after a pause, said, "I may not understand your humor, but I enjoy its persistence." It was an alliance forged not in power or politics, but in the simple, profound act of sharing a laugh. And in the cold vastness of space, that was a rare and precious thing. The Queen found herself in an unusual predicament, not because a rival fleet was amassing at the edge of the Nebulon sector, that was expected, nor because the Cosmic Tribunal was threatening sanctions for her latest territorial claim, that was routine. No, the problem was Elliot's latest idea for improving the palace's notoriously inefficient security system. "Imagine," he said with a grin, "a network of tiny drones that not only patrol but also tell jokes to distract intruders. We call them the Laughing Sentinels." The Queen stared at him, her long ears twitching. "Jokes? Seriously?" "Absolutely," Elliot said. "Nothing disarms a hostile better than a pun about starships. Trust me." The Queen shook her head, trying to suppress a smile. She'd never admit it, but the thought of armed drones cracking jokes was strangely comforting, especially if it meant less paperwork for her. Weeks before, Elliot had managed to infiltrate the Queen's tightly wound schedule with an audacity no one else dared. He'd brought a small device, a relic from Earth called a karaoke machine, claiming it was the perfect way to boost morale. The Queen was skeptical. Karaoke in the throne room. Next, someone would suggest dance-offs to settle disputes. Elliot's pitch included a demonstration which involved him singing a rather off-key rendition of an ancient human ballad. The court was horrified. The Queen, however, found herself laughing so hard her regal composure wavered. "If only diplomacy could be resolved with a duet," she joked. Elliot winked. "Trust me, it'd be less messy than most peace talks." From then on, karaoke nights became an unofficial, if somewhat chaotic, tradition, much to the bewilderment of the palace staff. Political intrigue swirled like a dense nebula. Some factions sought to undermine the Queen's reign by targeting Elliot, labeling him a human novelty unfit for royal circles. Secret transmissions circulated, suggesting the Queen was losing her grip on sanity, or worse, falling in love. "Love?" Elliot scoffed when he heard the rumors. "I'm barely keeping up with the etiquette, let alone emotions." The Queen overheard this and quipped, "If you can't love yourself, how can you expect me to?" Elliot's grin was infuriatingly charming. Yet beneath the banter was a growing bond that neither the Queen nor the human fully understood at first. It was a strange mix of camaraderie, challenge, and an almost magnetic pull that defied the cold expanse of space between their worlds. The Queen's long ears, once symbols of aloof power, became a source of humor between them. Elliot, ever the prankster, once secretly attached tiny glowing antennas that twitched in time with her mood. When she discovered them, she couldn't help but laugh. "You're testing my patience," she warned. but her eyes sparkled with amusement. "And I'm passing with flying colors," Elliot replied. Their private moments became an oasis amid galactic politics, a reminder that even the most powerful needed respite. Elliot's human quirks, from his obsession with Earth's outdated memes to his tendency to accidentally activate hidden palace security features, brought unexpected lightness to the Queen's world. One day, during a tense negotiation over mining rights on the volatile planet of Xerion, Elliot's humor saved the day. The opposing delegate, known for his ruthless tactics and suspiciously perfect coiffure, launched into a blistering tirade. Elliot interrupted, holding up a hologram of a dancing robot labeled Xerion's Future Workforce. The room fell silent. Then unexpectedly, laughter erupted. The tension broke like a supernova. The Queen glanced at Elliot, a rare smile softening her features. "Well played," she murmured. "Sometimes laughter is the best diplomacy." Elliot shrugged, or at least the most entertaining. As the Queen and Elliot's alliance deepened, whispers of change spread across the galaxy. The unyielding ruler who had turned away the galaxy's mightiest was now seen with a human who didn't fit any mold. Their relationship was a paradox, an iron-willed monarch and a clumsy human, bound by laughter and trust. The Queen began to question what it meant to wield power. Was it control, fear, or something else entirely? Elliot's presence challenged her, forcing her to confront vulnerabilities long buried. One evening, as they watched the swirling stars from the palace balcony, Elliot joked, "You know, for someone who rules an entire galaxy, you're surprisingly good at losing at card games." The Queen smiled. "And you're surprisingly persistent for someone with two left feet." They laughed together, the vastness of space feeling a little less lonely. The galaxy's most powerful queen had met her match, not in battle or politics, but in the quiet moments of connection with a human who saw her not as a sovereign, but simply as herself. And in that unexpected alliance, the seeds of a new era were planted, one where strength was measured not just in fleets and firepower, but in trust, humor, and the courage to be vulnerable. The galaxy had a funny way of reminding you that even the most carefully laid plans could go sideways in spectacular fashion. The Queen was in the middle of an important council meeting when Elliot burst in, breathless and grinning like a kid who just discovered a new toy. "You have to see this," he said, waving a small device. "I call it the quantum mood ring. It translates emotions into light patterns." The Queen arched a long ear, clearly unimpressed. "And what, pray tell, is the tactical advantage of a glowing bracelet?" Elliot shrugged. "Distraction? Diplomacy? It's like wearing your feelings on your wrist. Plus, it changes color when you tell a bad joke." The council groaned collectively, but the Queen allowed herself a rare chuckle. "Well, at least it won't help you win any favors," she said. Elliot's latest invention quickly became a staple in their odd partnership. The Queen would catch herself sneaking glances at the shifting colors on her wrist during tense meetings, the bracelet's hues ranging from serene blue to fiery red, depending on her mood. One day, during a heated debate over the allocation of Starship resources, the ring flashed bright yellow as Elliot cracked a joke about bureaucrats needing less paperwork and more coffee. The room briefly erupted into laughter before the Queen reminded everyone to stay on task. Elliot whispered, "Hey, I'm just trying to keep things lively." The Queen shook her head, a smile tugging at her lips. "You certainly succeed." Meanwhile, the political undercurrents of the galaxy stirred as alliances shifted like the orbit of unstable moons. The Queen's refusal to bow to traditional suitors and powerful factions frustrated many, but Elliot's presence added an unpredictable variable. Rival leaders attempted to use the human as leverage, hoping to unsettle the Queen's composure. One particularly ambitious diplomat sent a holovid claiming Elliot was a spy sent to destabilize the realm. Elliot responded by sending back a hologram of himself trying to operate a complex alien translator, resulting in a series of comical mispronunciations and a botched attempt at a traditional dance. The Queen watched the vid, laughter bubbling up uncontrollably. "At least he's harmless," she said. Behind the scenes, Elliot's curiosity about the Queen's world only grew. He insisted on touring the palace's less glamorous areas, the sprawling maintenance tunnels, the ancient archives filled with dust-covered relics, and even the forgotten greenhouse where alien flora struggled to survive under artificial light. You'd be amazed what stories these plants could tell if they could talk, he mused, carefully examining a luminous flower that pulsed softly. The queen, following at a respectful distance, found his enthusiasm infectious. You make a convincing gardener, she teased. Just don't ask me to prune anything. Elliot grinned. Deal. I'm better at planting ideas than trimming leaves. Their companionship deepened in unexpected ways. Elliot's straightforward humanity was a balm to the queen's carefully guarded loneliness. One evening, as they shared a meal of synthesized delicacies, Elliot accidentally knocked over a glass, sending a cascade of shimmering liquid across the table. Oops, he said, reaching for napkins. The queen watched, amused. You've brought chaos and laughter into my ordered world, she said softly. Elliot shrugged. I figure if you can't handle a little mess, you're not ready to rule a galaxy. The queen smiled, realizing he might be right. But not all moments were lighthearted. A sudden distress signal from a nearby colony threw the queen and Elliot into immediate action. A mysterious anomaly was destabilizing the planet's core, threatening to tear it apart. The queen convened her council, issuing commands with practiced precision. Elliot, ever the improviser, suggested an unorthodox solution involving nanobots reprogrammed to stabilize the planet's magnetic field. The council was skeptical, but the queen trusted Elliot's instincts. Very well, she said. Prepare your nanobots. As they deployed the microscopic machines, Elliot quipped, I hope they don't get stage fright. The queen rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a smile. As the nanobots worked their way through the planet's crust, stabilizing the core's fluctuations, Elliot and the queen monitored the progress. The tension was palpable, but Elliot's presence kept the mood lighter than expected. If this works, I want a medal, Elliot said. Or at least a lifetime supply of those coffee things you humans love. The queen nodded. I'll consider it. When the crisis finally passed without catastrophic damage, the queen allowed herself a rare moment of relief. You have a knack for turning disasters into stories worth telling, she said. Elliot grinned. Just wait until I write the memoirs. The incident cemented their partnership further. The queen began to see Elliot not just as a peculiar human, but as a vital ally whose unpredictability was a strength rather than a liability. Their conversations grew deeper, touching on philosophy, the nature of power, and the strange, beautiful loneliness of ruling. Elliot once joked, Maybe you need me around just to remind you to laugh. The queen's reply was quiet but genuine. Perhaps I do. In a galaxy ruled by strength and fear, their friendship was a rare constellation of trust and humor, a beacon against the void. And as stars blinked in the endless night, neither queen nor human could deny that something extraordinary was unfolding between them. The queen stood at the edge of her balcony, staring out at the swirling star fields that stretched endlessly before her. Elliot appeared beside her, carrying 2 steaming cups of synth coffee, one of which he offered with a crooked smile. You know, I read somewhere that ruling a galaxy is 90% waiting and 10% panic, he said. The queen snorted softly. Sounds about right. And the remaining 100% is trying not to snap at your human advisor? Elliot chuckled, accepting the cup. Hey, I take pride in my chaos-inducing tendencies. It had been months since the quantum mood ring incident, the karaoke debacles, and the nanobot planet-saving escapade. The galaxy was no less dangerous, but something fundamental had shifted in the queen. She wasn't just the iron-willed sovereign who rejected every suitor with a chilly glare anymore. She was a leader who had learned to embrace unpredictability, humor, and, dare she admit it, trust. Elliot had become not only her confidant, but also her mirror, reflecting vulnerabilities she had long hidden behind her crown. Their latest challenge came in the form of a coalition demanding that the queen relinquish control over certain key star systems. The ultimatum was clear: concede or face a full-scale rebellion. The council was in uproar, but the queen had a plan that only Elliot could appreciate. She called the coalition leaders to a summit, not in a grand palace hall, but aboard a repurposed space station orbiting a binary star, chosen for its neutrality and, more importantly, its notoriously unreliable gravity. As the delegates floated awkwardly in zero-G, the Queen's long ears twitched with barely contained amusement. Elliot, meanwhile, was grinning like a cat who just pushed a priceless vase off a shelf. "If diplomacy doesn't work, there's always slapstick," he whispered. The Queen raised an eyebrow. "This had better be good." Elliot produced a small device and activated a series of holographic illusions, turning the summit into a bizarre blend of a space carnival and a diplomatic circus. Delegates found themselves dodging floating pies and navigating a maze of holographic laser beams that spelled out playful insults in ancient galactic dialects. Laughter echoed through the station. The tension that had threatened to ignite war dissolved in the absurdity of the moment. The Queen's voice cut through the mirth with calm authority. "We are all custodians of this galaxy's future. Let us find common ground in respect, and perhaps in laughter." One by one, the coalition leaders nodded, the weight of their grievances lightened by shared humor and an unexpected sense of camaraderie. Back on the throne, the Queen and Elliot reflected on the summit's success. "Who knew diplomacy required pie throwing?" Elliot joked. The Queen smiled, her long ears flicking thoughtfully. "Perhaps power is not about standing alone, but about inviting others to dance. Awkwardly if necessary." Elliot raised his cup. "To awkward dances and unexpected partners." The Queen clinked her cup against his. Their journey had changed them both. The Queen had shed layers of icy detachment, discovering strength in vulnerability and connection. Elliot had found a place where his quirks were not just tolerated, but celebrated. Together they had woven a new narrative for the galaxy, one where trust, humor, and humanity reigned alongside power. As the stars continued their silent vigil, the Queen whispered, "Thank you, Elliot, for breaking through my defenses." Elliot grinned. "And thank you for letting me in. Now about that karaoke championship." The Queen laughed, a sound as rare and precious as a supernova's glow. "You're on." In that shared laughter, amid the endless cosmos, they had found not just alliance, but something far more profound, an unexpected home.